If we move Mom into assisted living by summer, we can list the house before the market cools. I froze in the hallway, my hand still resting on the banister. My son's voice carried clearly from the living room, low but sharp, like he was making a business pitch. "The diamond ring is basically mine." "Mark's the eldest, Brittany," his wife added with a laugh that scraped against my ears. "I'll take the cedar chest," my daughter Ava chimed in. "And the piano." "Luis wants the truck, right?" From behind the half-closed door, I could see the glow of the table lamp spilling over piles of papers. Mortgage statements, account balances, even a list with bold headings: house, car, jewelry, cash. They had written down my life like it was nothing more than an inventory for an estate sale. I pressed my palm against my chest as if I could hold my heart in place. I was still alive. I was standing right there listening to my own children carve me up as though I were already gone. Luis chuckled. "Once she's settled, we can renovate quickly. This neighborhood's hot. We should get offers above asking." A cold weight spread through me, heavier than anything I'd ever carried during those years of double shifts, raising them alone. Every word dug in deeper. I wasn't their mother. In that moment, I was property. I felt for the phone in my cardigan pocket. With trembling fingers, I tapped the screen and slid to record. The tiny red dot blinked back at me. Their voices filled the hallway, crisp and undeniable. My knees ached as I sank onto the bottom step, the old wood creaking beneath me. I had always believed love bound us together. But listening to them that night, I realized love had been replaced by greed. And I wasn't dead yet. My name is Eleanor Whitaker, and I'm 68 years old. For most of my life, I was the cafeteria manager at the local high school in Cedar Ridge, Ohio. It was not glamorous work, but it was steady, and it helped me raise 2 children after my husband died in a car accident when I was just 30. I remember those early years as a blur of exhaustion, working breakfast shifts at the school, then pulling evening shifts at a diner, coming home long after midnight, only to wake again at dawn. Still, I did it with a sense of pride. Every dollar meant another bill paid, another pair of shoes for my kids, another month closer to owning our modest ranch house outright. Mark, my oldest, was the one I poured the most resources into. He showed talent in school, and I wanted him to have opportunities I never had. I cashed out savings bonds, worked weekends, and even took a small loan so he could attend a good college out of state. Ava, my daughter, was more practical. She knew money was tight, and while I was busy funneling tuition checks toward her brother's future, she found her own way. She got a scholarship to community college, worked retail jobs, and grew into a woman who carried quiet burdens without complaint. I thought I had taught both of them the value of sacrifice, the dignity of hard work, and above all, gratitude. I believed that if I gave them love, they would return it tenfold. But time has a way of exposing cracks you cannot see when you're too close. I retired a few years back. The school gave me a small send-off, complete with a sheet cake decorated in blue frosting and a bouquet of carnations from the PTA. I remember smiling for pictures, but my real joy came from knowing I could finally rest my knees and spend more afternoons with my granddaughter, Mia. She was Mark's only child, a bright and gentle girl who often slipped notes into my purse with doodled hearts and reminders to drink water. Mia was the one who made me feel like I still had a role to play, someone who needed me for more than just what I could give financially. Over the years, I learned to live modestly. I clipped coupons, invested carefully in a small IRA rolled over from my 401k, and paid off the last of the mortgage 10 years early. My home became my anchor, a place of safety and memory. The cedar chest in my bedroom held every love letter my husband wrote, each crayon drawing my children made, every photograph that mattered. To me, those items were priceless. To them, I suppose they looked like bargaining chips. I never remarried, not because no one asked, but because I didn't want to divide my attention. My children had already lost their father. I couldn't stand the thought of them feeling replaced. So I chose to be both mother and father, disciplinarian and cheerleader, provider and protector. Yet standing in the shadows of my own hallway that night, listening to their voices divide up my belongings, I wondered if they had ever truly seen me, or only what I could offer. Their casual tone, their certainty, their entitlement. It cut deeper than any financial betrayal. They weren't just planning for a future without me. They were eager for it. And still a part of me clung to hope. Perhaps greed had twisted their words. Perhaps stress had sharpened their tongues. But another part of me, the part holding my phone, recording every syllable, knew better. The weeks that followed confirmed what my ears had already warned me. My children no longer saw me as their mother. They saw me as an obstacle, a hurdle between them and what they believed was rightfully theirs. It began subtly. Ava came over one afternoon with a bright smile and a suggestion that felt rehearsed. "Mom, you know it might be easier for you if I helped pay your bills online. You wouldn't have to worry about forgetting. Maybe you could just sign a power of attorney so I can handle things quickly." Her tone was casual, but her eyes flicked nervously toward Luis, who stood behind her, nodding as if it were the most natural idea in the world. I pretended to consider it, then shook my head. "Thank you, sweetheart, but I'm still perfectly capable of writing a check." Her smile tightened the corners of her lips, pulling back like a mask that didn't quite fit. Luis jumped in. "It's just paperwork, Eleanor. You don't want late fees piling up." Late fees. As if I had not spent decades balancing every penny, making sure their tuition and braces and dance recitals were all paid on time. The implication stung, but I let it pass. Not long after Brittany began dropping hints about safety upgrades around the house. One Saturday, Mark showed up with a new smart lock and announced he would install it. "We just want to make sure no one breaks in. This neighborhood isn't what it used to be," he said, holding the sleek device like it was a gift. Before I could object, he was already unscrewing the old brass lock that had guarded our front door for 30 years. Later that evening, I discovered the app on his phone allowed him to control when the door opened or locked. The irony wasn't lost on me. In the name of protection, my own son had taken control of my front door. I swallowed my anger. I had always been a patient woman, the kind who believed storms eventually passed. But this storm seemed to be gathering strength. The most painful moments were the little barbs, the casual cruelty disguised as concern. Ava telling me, "Mom, maybe you shouldn't drive anymore. You're not safe behind the wheel." Mark insisting, "You don't need all that clutter. We should start clearing things out." Brittany laughing. "The diamond ring will just gather dust in a drawer. Why not pass it down early?" Each word chipped away at me. Each remark turned me a little more invisible in my own home. Yet not everyone treated me as a burden. Mia came by after school almost every day. She watered my plants, swept the porch, and left sticky notes on the refrigerator. "Don't forget to eat lunch." Sometimes she sat with me on the swing in the backyard, listening quietly as I recounted stories of her father and aunt when they were her age. Her presence was like sunlight through a storm cloud, gentle, reassuring proof that not every seed of love I planted had withered. But Mia was only 15. She had no power to stop the adults around her. One evening, I overheard another conversation between Mark and Brittany in the kitchen. "We should push to move her into a facility by July," Brittany whispered. "The market's hot now, and if we wait, interest rates might kill the offers." "She'll resist," Mark muttered. "Then we insist. If we make it sound like it's for her health, people will side with us. No one wants to see an old lady living alone in a big house." The words landed like blows. Old lady, big house. They weren't worried about me falling or forgetting medicine. They were worried about missing a chance to profit. Still, I said nothing. My silence was my shield. Inside, however, I was beginning to plan. The final insult came on a Sunday evening when I walked into the living room and found Ava rummaging through my jewelry box. She flushed when she saw me, then quickly held up the jade pendant I had worn at her high school graduation. "I just wanted to borrow it," she said too quickly. "For luck." I looked into her eyes and saw no trace of shame, only entitlement. I took the pendant back, slipped it around my neck, and fastened the clasp with trembling hands. "Some things are not yours to take," I said quietly. Her cheeks burned red, but she didn't apologize. She simply stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night, lying awake in bed, I stared at the ceiling and listened to the echoes of all their words. My children, my flesh and blood, were planning my exit as if it were a business transaction. They thought I was too weak to stop them. But they didn't know everything. And soon enough, they would learn that I was not as helpless as they believed. My 68th birthday was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became the night my children tried to erase me from my own life. Mark insisted on hosting the party at my house, claiming it would be more comfortable for me. By the time neighbors and a few relatives arrived, I already sensed something was off. The decorations were cheerful balloons in pastel colors, a cake with my name piped in neat letters, but the atmosphere felt staged, rehearsed like everyone had been given a script I hadn't seen. Halfway through dinner, Mark cleared his throat and stood at the head of the table. His voice rang out steady and authoritative like a man closing a deal. "Mom, we've been talking and we think it's time you consider moving into assisted living. It'll be safer, easier on you, and honestly, it's the best decision for everyone." I froze, fork suspended halfway to my mouth. Conversations around the table fell silent. Brittany beamed, sliding a folder toward me. "We've already toured a facility. It's wonderful, private rooms, a garden, even bingo nights. We put down a deposit to reserve a spot for you this summer." Gasps rippled among the neighbors who had been invited. I felt dozens of eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. My cheeks burned. Then Luis leaned back, jangling a set of keys in his hand. "And since you won't need to worry about the house anymore, we'll take care of it. Keep it in the family." He smirked, waving the keys like a trophy. My daughter Ava, perhaps, realizing the weight of what was happening, tried to soften the blow, but only made it worse. "We already divvied things up, Mom. It's just easier this way." Divvied things up. The phrase stabbed sharper than any knife. They were speaking as if I were gone dead and buried while I sat right there, breathing, watching them dismantle the life I had built. The chatter of neighbors died completely. Forks clinked softly against plates, and someone coughed to fill the silence. I could feel my dignity unraveling thread by thread, exposed in front of people who once respected me. My throat closed, but no words came. I wanted to shout, to demand how they could humiliate me this way. Instead, tears welled in my eyes, sliding hot and unbidden down my cheeks. I stared at the folder, the neat stack of brochures, the contract with my name already printed in bold letters. My birthday, my home, my children. And yet I had never felt so utterly erased. Finally, I pushed my chair back. The wooden legs scraped the floor loud in the heavy silence. "Excuse me," I whispered, though my voice cracked like brittle glass. I stood the room, spinning slightly, and walked away from the table. Behind me, conversations restarted in hushed tones. Some guests murmured awkward reassurances, others pretended to check their phones. No one stopped me. No one defended me. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last, and closed my bedroom door. Only then did I let the sobs come, deep, wrenching sobs that left me trembling. I pressed my hand to the cedar chest, the one thing they had already claimed for themselves, and whispered to the empty room, "I'm not gone yet. You will not bury me alive." In that moment, my pain hardened into resolve. The humiliation, the betrayal, the public stripping of my dignity, those wounds burned hot, but they also lit a fire. They thought I had no power left. They were wrong. What my children never knew was that I had already taken steps to protect myself long before their whispers turned into plans. 6 months earlier, I had sat in a small office downtown with Sandra Lee, a local attorney known for her thoroughness. Together, we drafted a revocable living trust, one that placed every asset I owned, my home, my savings, my jewelry, into a structure they couldn't touch. The trust came with a no-contest clause. If either Mark or Ava challenged it in court, they would automatically forfeit whatever share remained to them. The document was ironclad, signed, notarized, and tucked safely away in Sandra's files and in a deposit box at the bank. My beneficiaries, not the children who were plotting my premature funeral, the trust stated that first and foremost, its assets would provide for my care as long as I lived. And when I passed, whatever remained would go to one person, Mia. I had wrestled with the decision for weeks before making it final. It tore at my heart to cut Mark and Ava from the future I once envisioned for them. But love without respect becomes weakness, and I refused to be weak anymore. Mia was the only one who treated me like I still mattered. She deserved the protection I had once assumed her father and aunt would provide. But there was more. On the night I overheard them slicing up my estate, I had pressed record on my phone. The voice memo captured every greedy word: Brittany claiming my diamond ring, Luis demanding the truck, Ava dividing up furniture as if she were picking scraps at a yard sale. Their voices, cold and transactional, had been preserved with digital clarity. Sandra had listened to the recording the very next morning. Her eyes, sharp behind rectangular glasses, met mine. "This," she said, tapping the screen, "is evidence of intent. If they ever claim to act in your best interest, this proves otherwise. Eleanor, you hold all the cards." I remember the relief that washed over me mingled with sorrow. Proof of betrayal is still betrayal. Yet I felt stronger knowing I wasn't as vulnerable as they imagined. I also wrote 2 letters, sealed and hidden away in the cedar chest they coveted. One was addressed to Mark, the other to Ava. In them, I told the truth that inheritance is not a reward for bloodline but for character, that they had traded my trust for greed, that the day they treated me as though I were already dead, I chose to see them differently too. The chest they wanted so badly would one day hold the final words they never expected. I didn't gloat. I didn't rush to reveal my secret. Timing is everything, and I knew the moment would come when their confidence turned into overreach. That would be when the truth emerged and the balance shifted. They thought they had me cornered, but in reality, I was already 2 steps ahead. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. A week after my humiliating birthday dinner, I invited Mark, Ava, Brittany, and Luis to meet me at Sandra Lee's office downtown. They arrived with smug expressions, whispering among themselves as though the outcome was already written. Sandra welcomed them into the conference room, her calm presence filling the space. She motioned for me to sit beside her at the head of the table. My children looked puzzled. Mark raised an eyebrow. "Why are we here, Mom? If this is about moving into the facility we already—" Sandra held up a hand. "This meeting is about Eleanor's estate planning. She asked me to facilitate." The color drained from Brittany's face, but Mark leaned forward with confidence. "Great. We're ready to help her with the transition." Without a word, Sandra tapped a button on her laptop. From the speakers came their voices, crisp and damning. "If we move Mom into assisted living by summer, we can list the house before the market cools. The diamond ring is basically mine. Mark's the eldest. I'll take the cedar chest. And the piano. Luis's laugh, Ava's agreement, Brittany's claim. It all filled the room with undeniable evidence. The smugness evaporated. Ava's lips parted in horror, Luis shifted uncomfortably, and Brittany's cheeks flushed crimson. Mark sat frozen, eyes narrowing as he realized the trap. This recording, Sandra said, evenly demonstrates intent to pressure Eleanor into decisions that benefit you, not her, and it makes clear you've already divided her assets as though she were deceased. Mark sputtered. "That's taken out of context." "No," I interrupted, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. "That was the context. My own birthday, my own table, and you treated me as though I were gone." Silence spread heavy across the room. Sandra slid a folder toward me. I opened it, revealing the trust documents. "This is my plan. Everything I own has already been transferred into a trust. It ensures my care for the rest of my life. And when I pass, what remains goes to Mia." Ava gasped, her hands trembling. "Mom, you can't mean that." "I can," I replied, looking straight at her. "And I do," Brittany tried to argue. "You're making a mistake. You're letting a child manipulate you." Sandra's voice cut in firm as steel. "The trust includes a no-contest clause. If anyone attempts to challenge it in court, they forfeit any remaining rights. You would be left with nothing." The weight of her words landed like a hammer. Luis opened his mouth, then shut it again. Ava began to cry softly, whispering that she had only wanted to help. Mark buried his face in his hands, muttering something about betrayal, but the only betrayal in the room was theirs. I folded my hands on the table. "I spent my life sacrificing for you. I worked until my body ached so you could have opportunities. And yet you treated me like a corpse you couldn't bury fast enough. That ends today." For the first time, I saw them as they truly were, children who had grown older but not wiser, blinded by greed. Sandra closed the folder with finality. "The matter is settled. Eleanor retains full autonomy. The trust is irrevocable. I suggest you all respect her wishes." We left the office in silence. Outside, the late afternoon sun lit the street in gold, but their faces were gray with shock. Brittany stormed ahead. heels striking pavement like gunshots. Luis muttered curses under his breath. Ava clung to Mark's arm, sobbing. I walked behind them, my shoulders straight. For once, I didn't feel small. I felt whole. In the days that followed, I changed the locks on my house, this time keys only in my possession. I moved my most precious keepsakes into a bank safe deposit box. I rejoined a church group I had neglected, started tending my garden again, and accepted the help of kind neighbors who offered it without hidden agendas. Mia continued to visit, unaware of the legal documents that safeguarded her future. She didn't need to know yet. All she needed was to keep being herself, a girl who loved me without strings attached. For the first time in years, I slept soundly. The fear of being discarded, of watching my life's work dismantled by greedy hands, no longer haunted me. I had faced them, revealed the truth, and reclaimed my dignity. Justice had been served not in a courtroom, but in a conference room where their own words betrayed them, and I was still here, alive, strong, unbroken. In the quiet weeks that followed, I discovered a peace I hadn't felt in years. The storm had passed, and though scars remained, I carried them with pride. My children's greed had cut me deeply, but it also revealed the truth. Love without respect is hollow, and loyalty without gratitude is nothing at all. One crisp autumn afternoon, I sat on the front porch, a blanket over my knees. The maple tree in the yard blazed red, its leaves drifting slowly to the ground. Beside me, Mia handed me a mug of hot chocolate, her eyes glowing with the innocence and warmth my heart had longed for. She asked nothing of me but my company, that I realized was the greatest inheritance of all. I looked at her and said, "Justice isn't always loud, Mia. Sometimes it's just the strength to endure and the wisdom to protect what matters." She smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder, and for the first time in months, I felt truly safe. To those who might hear my story, I want to say this. Do not assume family will always honor you. Sometimes the deepest betrayals come from within your own home, but never let that betrayal define you. Protect yourself, value your worth, and remember gratitude, not bloodline, is the true measure of love.